have three of them here today. So we're going to give three organizations up here a chance to talk through basically a little bit more about who they are, where they're at in the supply chain, but then what their certification journey has been like. So we've got real stories from certified organizations. So first off, give a hand for our certified organizations. Congratulate them. Yay. Okay, and first up is Continental Resources. So first of all, would you guys mind just doing a quick intro into yourselves and the organization?
Louis Navakis. I'm the Data Protection Officer, the Cisco Compliance Officer, the Executive Director, and Executive Director of Legal and Contracts. Yeah, it's a lot. So I've been here for 30 years. We're a $500 million reseller. We've been in business for 63 years. So should I start our compliance journey or let Paul introduce himself?
Maybe get Paul over. Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
I'm Paul Begley. I'm a Chief Technologist at Continental Resources. I've been with Continental. I left and came back twice, but I've been associated with Continental Resources for 25 years.
Fantastic. Okay, so we see some information here. Your HQ, your company size. We tried to pick some, relatively.
Sorry, you don't have a mic.
I know, I'm just yelling.
But for the recording.
Oh, that's true. Okay. We'll give you a mic. Thank you. Thank you. So we have some different organizations of different sizes and different places. Do you mind just giving an overview of Continental Resources? Like, what is it that you do? Where you're at in the supply chain?
We're an information technology reseller. So we resell all major vendors, Cisco, etc., down the line. We provide products, services, solutions, designs, configurations, warehousing, logistics internationally, as well as domestically for our customer base. We deal in every type of customer: retail, commercial, hospitality, healthcare, government, defense. So we're across the board. Our certification journey actually started from the commercial side over 10 years ago because most of our large financial customers were requiring certain assurances of our IT infrastructure. So at the time we decided to embrace the 110 controls from NIST way back over 12 years ago. So that set us up properly for what was to come with our SOC audit, even though it's not as much related, but especially for the CMMC audit.
Wonderful. Tell the audience here a little bit more about how did you actually go about that then? So you've given some context as to kind of the origin. Where did you start? How did you go about getting compliant into sort of the certification process?
So to spare, me and Paul can both talk a lot, and we could have consumed this entire day, so it's difficult for us to condense information. So I apologize. But specifically with the CMMC, as soon as it was even mentioned, we started the process. The most critical thing we can convey is being prepared. We read all the materials, all the information. On a yearly basis for the last 10, 15 years, we meet every year. We review every single control subsection. We map it. We spend an enormous amount of time ensuring that our IT systems meet every single control and compliance aspect. Additionally, our whole organization is driven around the compliance ethos. So no matter what we're going to do, partner with somebody, sell something, onboard a customer, the first thing they do is ask our security and compliance team, is this something we can do? So we've embedded that into the company mantra for everyone to know. And me and Paul are known as the harbingers of death within our company because we do chase people down. We write a lot of people up. We take it very, very seriously. And that's probably one of the mistakes we see when dealing with a lot of our customers. And we have over 3,500 customers as a company. And a lot of them are going through different types of compliance journeys We're typically helping them on the IT side. We actually refer them to A-LIGN for the compliance stuff. So we don't get involved with that. But most of the mistakes they make are they just take it for granted. Yeah, our IT systems are great. We don't need to do all that stuff you just said. It takes too much time. And they fail. So.
Beautiful. So talk us through, you mentioned like since CMMC was first sort of mentioned, you guys jumped on it right away, took it very seriously. Obviously, it's taken a while for rulemaking to catch up to you all, and the actual program rule to be finalized and C3PAO assessments to begin. Talk us through like, okay, when did you start to think about, okay, when do we want to be certified? How did that planning go? And then we can dive into the actual assessment process.
So we knew as soon as the CMMC came out, we wanted to be certified. We actually started schedule. We've been having yearly calls with A-LIGN since it came out about when we could be audited. We wanted to be audited right away. We wanted to be audited in a pilot program. So as soon as we could be audited, we signed up for the auditing. We felt we were very, very prepared because we meet a lot of other compliance standards. And in some of our initial planning, another word of advice, you can be ISO, you can be SOC, you can be everything else in the world. It doesn't mean you're going to meet CMMC. You got to follow what they're asking for and give it to them in that format. So that's something that took us a lot of time because we have to maintain a lot of different compliance frameworks, and they all want information in a different format. So just because you've been knocking one out of the park doesn't mean you're ready to walk it through the CMMC process. And that's something that dealing with the A-LIGN auditors helped us. So.
I'd like to interject then. The CMMC was finalized like December 15th or something. Yeah. And we're like, this is great because Christmas. But we also used, it was a step up because we were very familiar with what we were delivering for SOC 2 and previous audits. And we had the content, we had a system, we had scripts to generate the data we needed. And in fact, I was the one that did it, focused on the CMMC requirements and the submissions. And I used Microsoft and other resources. They have guides for CMMC. And that helped us align them because we're in the Microsoft cloud. So that enabled us to get a step up. I was still sweating bullets a bit, getting everything to match. But it was incremental because we had been doing this for 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
And we also had a team that understood our environment, and we had prepared our environment to minimize security issues that we had already determined earlier on in the process. So it was incremental change. Also, my role is I'm the old crotchety guy that calls people up and threatens them. Also, we have the luxury of being a private company. So when it came down to you must do this, or when we were going to make a change, if they were complaining, I said call Kevin and Jimmy. They're the owners of the company.
Owners of the company.
And that streamline, you don't have that advantage, and I've seen that when I'm working in a large public company. So that was an advantage to us.
Paul's very technical.
Yeah. We all love the crotchety old guy who tells us what to do. So we appreciate you, Paul.
It helps.
And old.
Okay, so talk to us about the actual assessment process, right? We did a session earlier doing some mock audit against some different controls. Everybody's going through CMMC for the very first time. What was your actual experience like getting assessed?
Honestly, it was great. Really didn't. I think it was one of the first audits that A-LIGN did, and obviously it was our first audit. So there was a couple missteps because our auditor got sick, so it wasn't anyone's fault, and then we had to kind of reboot. But we didn't really have any issues because we've been, this sounds like I'm selling them, but I will sell you for a minute. Is that all right?
I won't stop you.
So because of the industry we're in, when we started all these compliance things, we vetted 20 to 30 auditing companies before we decided to go with A-LIGN. I mean, we're in that business. We do similar things. We know a lot of people. So for us to choose them was significant. And we've stayed with them now since 2018. So, you know, it was no brainer to go with them with the CMMC. We like their approach, but it's the people you're working with. I mean, this sounds terrible, but A-LIGN is just a name, it's just a company. It's no different than our company. It's the people you work with. And the people we work with there are fantastic. They're patient, they guide us, we explain things to them. You know, we've been working together for a long time. So we really didn't have an issue. But however, it still goes back to, we are very prepared. They're not asking us for something and then we're hanging up the phone going, oh my God, you know, how are we going to put this together? We already have everything. So that's another thing that makes the auditing process easier. You have to be very prepared. Don't assume you're going to skirt something or you're going to make something up. We don't do any of that stuff.
Great.
The previous, I'll interject, the previous panel, they were talking about different tools and to do the data assessment. And we had done that, and we had made a decision to push the end user data all to the cloud in OneDrive. We had a framework that worked for that. And I think that made it a lot easier for us as an organization. We treat everything as...
yeah, not to get into the weeds, but we took an approach that everything that enters our company, we classify as super confidential, top secret, controlled unclassified, like it's the cure for cancer. We don't segment it per department. Yes, we do have privileged access spread out, but everything that comes in and all the data that's managed is handled that way. So it's always a bump in the audit because they're like, people are expecting, well, only this group sees that, only group sees that. You have different access. We don't. We have a totally different approach. So it's all or nothing company-wide. But because of our size, a company with several thousand people may not be able to do what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're under 300 people.
Right.
Total
Yeah.
employees. And I'm trying to think of what the data, endpoint management was already sorted. And we went from on-premise Active Directory is our source of truth for identity. And we went from domain joined to using autopilot for all the endpoints. And that customer satisfaction, management, everything fell in line with that.
And we do like simplicity is the key. We don't overcomplicate our environment. So.
Fantastic. Okay. I think we'll go through, move on to the next one, and then we'll open it up to any questions that the audience might have for all three of you. So next we have Bo from Elbit. Bo, do you mind giving us an introduction into yourself and the organization?
Sure. Elbit Systems of America, we're a foreign-owned or controlling interest company known as FOSI. So it's actually it's an opportunity for, we are used to having additional scrutiny put onto our company, so it actually helped us with this. We're on the size, the U.S. component is just under $2 billion a year in annual revenue, with our parent company being over $10 billion. So we're in the top 20 in the world for defense contractors total. Our background, we are ISO 27001 certified, we are CMMC certified, and we've gone through 3 DIPCAC assessments. Just with our subsidiary, we've gone 2 CMMC assessments, and because of all that, I'm actually a CMMC lead assessor, just because I went through so many audits, I went ahead and did the paperwork. And I find it very helpful. I look forward to questions. I wrote down a lot of stuff that I found interesting during the conference, and some of the stuff that really, I think, would may help with a little clarity. If you're trying to figure out the whole enclave, VDI, enterprise approach, what they described was an enterprise approach. What we did is an enterprise approach. It's best for your users, but there is the enclave or the VDI is going to be easier to get assessed, right? The people like, I've got to have something in 3 months, generally means they're going to have to go that route because of just, it's really hard to get your whole enterprise along something in under 100 days. The issue with that, though, is it doesn't work, and usually people have to dump it after, as soon as they make it through the audit, because turns out like on a VDI, you really can't plug in anything to it. Can't plug a USB into a VDI. Problem with an enclave is if your enclave isn't connected to your CRM, you're not going to be able to bill anyone. So there's a lot of practical issues you'll go through when you're trying to figure out this stuff. And generally, the reason people do the VDI or the enclave is just because they're in a rush and they don't have time to actually try to figure out how to do it right. I liked how they talked about taking years. That's something we've been working on this. Our first security plan was written in 2017. We're on version 4, Rev J. Just going through, we go through a lot of iterations. Our policies we have like 16 policy documents have been revised over 8 times, where we keep getting things better over time. And I find that it really does take about 12 months to get 1 year's experience. So it's really hard for people to be like, well, I can knock this out in 3 months. Well, yeah, you're going to fall on your face a couple of times. One thing that I do like, I bring up with a lot of people, maybe it makes some people uncomfortable. There's all these people that want to help you. That's just, there's going to be, because it's capitalism. If you're in a situation where you're looking at a managed service provider and they're not CMMC certified, why do you think they're going to be able to take care of you? And I hear that a lot from MSPs, like, oh yeah, we can help you. I'm like, well, have you gone through an assessment? No. And so as someone who's been there, done that, and has so many shirts, my wife made a quilt of them, I have pictures. I'll say, I get real tired of people talking about what they can do instead of what they have done. So I would encourage you, look for someone that's actually done it, as opposed to someone who's all about helping you. Well, how many people have you helped? What do you know? And I will throw a plug at A-LIGN. I would much rather have a smart person assess me than an idiot. And I'm telling you that if you go lowest dollar, sometimes you're going to get someone who might be the first time they've done it. Or, the thing that scares the hell out of me after doing this for a long time is that there's people that are selling CMMC as a way to break into cybersecurity. I really don't want someone assessing me that's been doing this for 6 months, and doesn't understand the difference between Amazon and Google and Microsoft, or how firewalls really work. Because they just passed a test, which I passed both of them, they're not that hard. So I'm just telling you, be very careful and interview who you're hiring. And if you think, oh, these guys don't know what they're talking about, I'll be able to pull wool over their eyes, don't go that route. I've been assessed by idiots before, and it's not helpful. It's much better if you're talking to someone intelligent. When A-LIGN came to us, the people that did the assessment, they were like, oh, all your cloud service providers either have to be FedRAMP or FedRAMP equivalent. Yeah, I got that. But you have to have the same paperwork, even if they're FedRAMP. So my blood pressure went up to like over 250, and my steam started coming out of my ears, because the memo actually says that, everybody quotes, this doesn't apply if they're already FedRAMP, if they're already in the marketplace. But most of our assessors, when they got assessed, they were using GCC High, and GCC High wasn't in the FedRAMP marketplace, so they all got I'm trying to say in a polite way of saying this, investigated deeply for all this paperwork they needed. When, dude, if Microsoft would have just been in FedRAMP, they wouldn't have had to do all that stuff. So that I was able to show them, like, now you don't have to do that. And being a lead assessor gave me the confidence to do that, and a couple other times gave me the confidence to stand up when I didn't agree with them. Because at the end of the day, you make a case. And I would encourage you to at least understand the assessment guides. If you're paying someone to help you, this is what DibCAC has told me. I've gone through so many, I didn't know people, and they're like, most people they're like, oh my gosh, I gotta do this. Like, when they get hit with something real quick, they just pay like big bucks to get someone write their documentation. And then the DibCAC would go in and say, well, your documentation looks great, but it doesn't look anything like how you have implemented it. So that you got to be real careful when you pay someone to come in and just give you some great documents, because there's plenty of people that sell documentation. Problem is, you don't even need a smart auditor to be able to they're going to come and say, here's what it says you do, show me you do that. So be real careful on that, and because that's bitten a lot of companies. Because I've talked to other 3PAOs, I've talked to the DibCAC, and it's the whole Goldilocks thing. Some people have great documentation and their implementation sucks. A lot of people who do it themselves have great implementation, but their documentation sucks. And it takes special companies that actually have both. And if you can do that without external help, it's a lot cheaper if you can do it yourself. And what else? Oh, one thing that came up earlier today I thought was interesting was sharing your SSP. We, as a mid-tier defense contractor, have to share our security plan with Boeing, with Lockheed, with a lot of external companies. We wrote ours so that it says, yes, we have an EDR, yes, we do all this stuff, and then it references the actual policies with the, with the page numbers, where to find how we do it. And we just don't give that to Lockheed. We give it to the auditors, like the CMMC auditor has access to it, the DIBCAC auditors have access to it, ISO auditors, but we don't give it to our competitor friends or frenemies, whatever you want to call them. So that's just something you might want to think about doing on SSPs. And just real quickly on 171R3, punt on that unless you have a requirement for it. You got enough on your plate if you're just trying to figure out 171R2. That's a problem for manana. You're probably 2 to 3 years away from having to worry about it, unless for some reason someone wants you to self-attest for it because you're doing business with someone else, even though that FAR clause still isn't official yet. But if they wanted to go that route and knock themselves out. But if you're just doing it for the DoD, don't. It's too different. Don't stress it. You have any things you want me to talk about?
Beautiful. No. I think you hit on a lot. I think we could probably move on to Larry, because I think the audience will have some questions at the end. So, Larry, GRS Tech, I know Bo set you up a little bit here talking about MSPs being certified. Tell us about yourself and your organization.
Well, 240 employees. That sounds very cool. So Larry Burbano here, CEO of GRS Technology Solutions. We are an MSP located in Fairfax, Virginia, so it's just 25 minutes away from here, very convenient. We passed our CMMC as an MSP back in July 7. We also passed, been doing SOC 2, passed our annual audit with A-LIGN for the past 5 years, so the relationship with A-LIGN always has been there. We started CMMC, to be honest, 6-7 years ago. One of our clients brought this default clause to our attention. We didn't know. We were supporting them. And once we read the NIST 800-171, revision 1 at that time, we just fell in love with the whole framework. So we made a very good decision to become, to align our core operations to NIST 800-171 many years ago. And then when CMMC was created, we were all almost there. So we just we were waiting for the final rule, because it was changing. It was the 0.4 and then 1.0 and then the 2.0. So by the time the final rule was published back in December, we decided to go for certification. That's where the way that we started, we did self-assessment, because we have been, keeping that compliance since, 6 years ago. And it was very straightforward, and that's how we jumped from self-assessment to CMMC Level 2 certification through A-LIGN. And yeah, I think it was the right thing to do for our clients, especially that we are providing the whole IT departments. We're providing IT department services from help desk, network, cloud management, cybersecurity, and compliance. So we drive the program. We hold our clients, or DoD or OSC's contractors, accountable. We actually take control, and we make sure that if I'm talking to the CEO, he's going to deliver that. He's going to sign the policies. He's going to give me the information that I need. So it's just like driving, finding an MSP that really drives the process, just like a personal trainer. Knock on your door, let's go to the gym, do your workouts, I'll see you tomorrow morning. So that's kind of like the way our approach to every client. And that has been, they like it. They love it. So, and sometimes maybe because nobody had done it before. But once you set the expectations with them and you take full ownership and tell them what to do, guide them through the whole process. So at the end of the day, you want to design, scope their environment, and also, we have all the tools, so we align all our tools, SPA, our FedRAMP. We didn't want to improvise with SOC 2 or any cloud solution that wasn't part of the FedRAMP marketplace. So that's how all the tools that we provide to our clients and we use internally, they are part of the FedRAMP marketplace. So that way, when you are having discussion with the assessor, they don't have to worry about that. So we made that investment internally, but at the same time, it streamlined the whole assessment process.
That's great. So talk about that a little bit. Any surprises? Was it what you expected? The actual assessment process itself, once you got into it.
To be honest, it was very easy. And the reason why is because we had that, we're doing the SOC 2 audit we aligned for the past 5 years.
Yeah.
And the expectations is always, very straightforward from the beginning. The good thing about CMMC is a little bit different because you have to follow the CAP, right? So the 4 phases. But one of the things, the crucial part for us, it was having a discussion with my lead CCA. I'm a CCA, so we kind of have the same, we have kind of the same vocabulary per se. And I just wanted to have a phone call, want to make sure the IRL, that's what you call it?
Information request list, all the
Yeah.
evidence we asked for.
So that was a good thing because we were so super ready. So we just dump everything into your system. And I want to have a discussion with the lead CCA to see he fully understood our scope and the environment, and if he noticed any red flags before we even moved to phase 2.
Yeah.
And Mike is here. He was our lead CCA. We had a great discussion. He understood all the tools, what we do, all the documentation, and and asking him, do you see anything else? What do you think about this? I'm very concerned about this. And, it's just going above and beyond at phase 1, because I think phase 1 is probably the most important ones.
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
as I talked about earlier, we saw a lot of organizations very early on have issues with phase 1, certainly. So it's very critical.
And one of the things about phase 1 is, as a plan B, I think you should negotiate this. Sorry.
Go for it.
One of my emergency backup plan, my plan B. What happens if I get a conditional certification? Are you going to prioritize me as a client? Because they have the discretion to say no to you, and then you're going to have to find another C3PO. I want to see the pricing up front. What will happen if it's just 5 controls? I want to know. And can you assess those controls with the same team so it will be faster? You don't have to start phase 1 again. So that was one of the main things that I negotiated, and I think everybody should negotiate, just in case, you really need the certification, but they don't have the time. So that was one of the conditions that you should ask to any C3PO. What happens if I get a conditional certification and I can close these, POAMs items in 6 days? Can we go back on track and you can do a phase 4, which is a POAM closeout, and that way you can get your final certification. So I think that's probably the one piece that I wanted to make sure that I had it under my pocket.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. I think if you guys are okay with it, we'll open it up to some questions. If anybody has any questions about their assessment experience, the actual organizations themselves, any of that. Yes?
I have a couple questions for Bo.
Couple questions for Bo. Great. I will repeat them.
Sounds good.
So go for it.
So question number 1, can you kind of explain what your compliance journey was? Did you start with ISO and then move to CMMC or vice versa? How long did readiness take for you, for your organization? And what did you find going from one framework to another in terms of overlapping controls? And what was the biggest difference or differences between the two?
Question around the compliance journey, having different frameworks, the timeline for it, and just generally kind of the overall strategy there.
That's a great question. The thing I want to say, because I should have said this up front, the defense industry in general, our margins aren't that great. I know there's companies that left the defense industrial base because they could get better margins on the commercial side. I share that because our InfoSec budget almost doubled over 5 years. Because dude, FedRAMP's not cheap. You don't have to take my word for it. You'll figure it out. You know, so that you need to understand what we spent years. Sounds like they spent years. It sounds like you've put some years into this.
Yeah.
That it is a lot more palatable if you're trying to do the enterprise solution, which is something that's going to work with putting the users first, in my opinion, because it's just not real popular when people have to go into VDIs or they can't actually access the CRM or whatever the tool is. It gets people get grumpy. Taking years, so you're eating that budget up over time, right? So it's not like in the same calendar year I'm now going from X spend to Y spend. It's over time, and I would say that really helped us. The fact that we had years, we could do things without angering our user base, because we could actually wait 12 months for an upgrade to happen from a vendor, so that we could get the capability like FIPS compliance. We were able to work with vendors to get a FIPS mode enabled over time, where you might, honestly, you're going to break some stuff with FIPS mode if you're not used to using it. It's going to break stuff. We started off with DoD added ISO, so like in our gap assessment with A-LIGN, I was working till really late at night because I didn't know the clauses were a thing before we started the gap assessment. So if you do ISO, you know that the controls, there's controls that are kind of similar to what's in CMMC, but the heart of ISO is in the clauses, and a lot of that stuff doesn't apply to CMMC, so it actually made us a better program. And we've also done other frameworks like the UK's Cyber Essentials Plus, PCI, DSS. Very rarely will one get you through another. I just haven't been that lucky where it's been easy, like, oh, because on this framework, they all have different priorities, and they usually address different weaknesses in a program. So I wouldn't say that just because you're ISO, it's going to be easier or harder, because some of the questions don't apply. Now, the way you do risk management will probably help a little, but like you saw this morning, they weren't looking at a risk management program. They're looking like, dude, your vulnerabilities are 64 days old. That's not a ISO 27001 real issue. That's more like CMMC. Like, this is a foot stomper. Believe me on this. As long as you're in R2, you set your organization-defined parameters. That's what changes in R3 is the government decided, no, they're going to make some of those decisions. I defined over 150 different things that we said. So, like, you need to not screw yourself. Like, Microsoft, when it does a password change, unlike almost every other big vendor out there, it doesn't have you the ability to set 5-character change. It only allows, if you just do the one that's in the GPO control, it's 1 character. So our requirement is you change 1 character, and it has to be number, uppercase, lowercase, complex. But they're like, that's fine, because that's what you said. So if you say you have to change 4 characters and you can't show how you're doing it, you could be stepping on yourself and causing yourself a lot of consternation. So there isn't a framework that, one thing I have heard, maybe others have heard this, like in order of pain, it goes from SOC 2 to ISO to CMMC. But I don't know if that's necessarily true for everyone. That's what people who've gone through that whole journey have said, that SOC 2 was the least painful, then ISO was more painful, and then CMMC is like an enema.
I mean, I can add to that. I do have a framework that you can map any ISO controls, and it's just minimum. So what we did is, for one of our clients, they were ISO certified. We just rip all the policies from the ISO and took the CMMC and embedded whatever into the CMMC policies. And whatever that is not part of CMMC, like, I don't know, disaster recovery, right? Like, it's not part of CMMC. You just keep those. But I think the CMMC is more powerful, all the policies and procedures. For us, our SOC 2, we just rip off all the SOC 2 policies, and we made CMMC policies to be the main policy, the master policy for certain domain controls. And of course, you're going to find domain controls that are not part of CMMC, but you need to have a different policy. But at least you don't have 2 sets of policies, 2 sets of access control policies. Actually, you can have one master one talking to both frameworks.
Yeah, following question, go for it.
Do either of you use a GRC platform, and if so, which one?
Do you use a GRC platform? If so, which one?
I do, a lot, yeah. We use Vanta internally for our SOC 2. We use feature fee for our for our clients. They like it, the interface as a PM tool, but everything is done in the back end, right? On Word documents, on Excel, we just upload the information so we keep our clients accountable from our side and their side. We would love to see if A-LIGN can start using that, so we don't have to, it works like an ISO assessment and and SOC 2. But yeah, we use Vanta, we use Future Fee for CMMC, and maybe we'll use Vanta too for CMMC. They just didn't have the framework at the time that we needed it.
And really quickly on that, so some of you might be wondering why, I think this came up earlier, why can't A-LIGN pull from that? So we actually have to treat your evidence as a CUI. Your evidence is not CUI, but from our perspective as a C3PAO, we have to treat it and protect it as such. Thus, it can only, when we touch it, be in FedRAMP, moderate, authorized, or equivalent clouds. So I think we'll figure that out one day, but currently all C3PAO's hands are a little bit tied in terms of pulling direct evidence from clouds that are not FedRAMPed.
Okay.
It's kind of the core there.
Last one.
Yeah.
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 Larry, it sounds like you've been through SOC 2, ISO, CMMC, any other compliance frameworks that you guys support as well?
Any other frameworks that GRS supports?
I mean, HIPAA for, we got some HIPAA clients, and
PCI.
GDPR, which is privacy for some, we have some clients that have some European relationships, so they need to comply with that too. And Vanta is, that's everything, most of the stuff for us. Yeah.
Great. Any other questions from anyone else? No. Okay. We are going to head into a break then, but please give a hand for our panelists here. Thank you guys so much.
I'm glad I didn't fall off the chair.